Okay, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As you can tell, I'm a little hoarse. I hope everybody else out there is all right. Actually, this is probably a blessing in disguise that today is when I'm pretty backed up here. What I actually was going to do today is going to be a little more interactive um, than kind of what I've been doing before, which is really kind of more just showing you things. What I want us to do today, especially for those of you who really may be struggling as far as writing a draft goes, though I think that those of you who actually have done what I've asked, you probably should be on pace. I've given you all your feedback. I've met with you. Those of you who met with me, some people didn't, but I've given as much feedback as I can give. Really, um, a little bit more experience doing research and writing these kind of papers. That if you're willing to sit here, and I know it's difficult for a lot of people, especially I know people in you all's age group, because you're in that generation of people who multitask, or at least they try to multitask, which means usually you're doing more than one thing at once. And if you're trying to do more than one thing at once, usually it means that you're not doing any one of those things as well as you could do them. One of the things I tell people about writing, it is not a discipline that lends itself to multitasking. So again, if you're somebody who likes to text, likes to watch TV, likes to play on Facebook, and likes to do the Twitter thing, whatever it may be, if you're trying to write and you're trying to do all those things, you're trying to serve a lot of different masters there, and usually something's gonna fall short. And from what I've seen, usually that it's the writing. So what I want to do is just kind of give you all a brief display of kind of what you can do when you know what to look for and where to go, to show you all kind of how to get started, especially those of you, like I said, who may be struggling. For some of you, this may not really even be that necessary, but I want to make sure I'm covering all my bases. And because we can't meet face to face, and a lot of people I know are having trouble with their email or their internet. And let's be honest, a lot of you guys, even if you were having problems and we were still in class, you would never come to me anyway. And that's not a shot at you. Just some people don't like asking for help. So again, this is sort of like a tutorial for those of you who feel like you need it. And this way, again, if you do, you're anonymous. You don't have to come to me. You don't have to say, Dr. Root, I don't know what I'm doing, or you don't have to say it in front of the class. You can just sit here and watch. Or if you don't feel like you need to, if you're already writing, really, this probably is not something you need. But if you want a little extra, sort of a little extra advice or input, stick around and I will do my best to kind of show you the ropes of getting started. So here's where I said we were going to be more interactive. Okay. I'm not asking any of you all to give me the topics that you're writing on. Okay. But let me just throw this question out here. Give me, everyone in the room, give me a topic that pops into your head that you might want to see a paper written about. And I'm going to say really quickly, don't put coronavirus on there because that's too new. Okay. So don't put that on there. I know everybody wants to know about that right now, but don't give me that topic. Just throw a topic out there. There's no right or wrong answer here. Just give me something. But I'd like to get more than one person's input here on a topic. Okay, I think physical therapy is what you're doing is your topic. I don't want to do your topic. Because then basically I'm doing your work for you. So that's why I said don't give me a different topic. Okay, what the older generation got? Man. Okay. Okay. Since it seems like people are struggling to give me any input here. All right. So let's see what you hunger. Okay, I'm trying to think here. Okay. Jayla, while I'm playing around with Caleb's question here, think about specifically what you mean by hunger, because that is an enormous topic for a 5-page paper. What did we say? Okay, and my internet, I notice, is kicking in and out a little bit, so bear with me. What did we say last time we had a live stream? What did we talk about? The first thing in the process is, other than picking a topic. Once you pick a topic, what do you need to do? And this could really benefit people who either are struggling or people who weren't able to see the last stream. Although the stream has been up, you should have been able to watch it. You've got your topic. So what do you need to do with the topic? What's the first thing you need to do? Okay, very close. Write an introduction and thesis statement. Now, remember what we talked about. What comes before a thesis statement? What do you have to have? Usually. But good, Caleb, you're on the right track. give you a hint. You have to have something to get to this point. Good, Jayla. The question. Remember, you need to have a question that you're trying to answer about your topic. Okay, like that's why, like I was saying, Jayla, like again, thank you for the input. I don't want people thinking I'm attacking them. What I mean is hunger is so broad. I mean, you could not, unless you whittled that down, you can't write a 5-page paper on the topic of hunger. It would be way too vague. And Caleb, I think the problem with what you presented as a topic is, again, unless you could make that more specific, I think that would be hard to get research on. Like, I think it'd be hard for you to find source material on that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick one of my own off the top of my head. All right. Because, like I said, my voice is probably not going to hold up that well. And I know it's early. It's early for me too. And I'm just going to go ahead and pick one. Let's say, with all the, the political stuff, and I'm not that political of a person. I'm more of a history guy. Let's say I want to write my paper on socialism. Okay. What's probably the first thing, aside from a research question? What's the first thing I need to know if I'm going to be writing that paper? Good. Excellent, Caleb. Okay. So, definition. So we go to Google. Now, you can go a lot of places to get a definition, but wherever you go, you want to make sure you're getting it from something credible. Okay. So, like Merriam-Webster, the Webster's Dictionary, obviously a very good, widely accepted dictionary. So we'll just go to there. Okay. Socialism. So we've got 3 definitions here. Now, this first one, pretty broad. Any of various economic and political theories advocating collective or governmental ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. Okay. Obviously, what you would need to do if you're going to use that definition is you need to make it more, you need to put it in more layman's terms. Okay. What do I mean by layman's terms? This is really very convoluted kind of wording, unless you know what all this means. Okay. 2A, a system of society or group living in which there is no private property. Okay. That's a pretty straightforward definition. B, a system or condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the state. Again, pretty straightforward. Okay. 3, a stage of society in Marxist theory, transitional between capitalism and communism and distinguished by unequal distribution of goods and pay according to work done. Okay. Again, this would be a nice historical definition, but honestly, we'd probably want to use one of these two because it's a very straightforward one. Okay. So what we'll do for the moment. Sorry, this is small here. Okay. So we're going to keep this kind of in the hopper here. All right. Because you got to remember, again, this is a process. And I get a sense that a lot of you guys, again, when you start writing, you want to jump right into writing. And you know, again, you have to remember that you have to have you have to almost have something prepared or a strategy in mind before you start. Okay. So right here where I'm starting is at the grassroots of it. Here's the definition. Okay. And what I would tell you is this is a very timely topic because in politics, whether you follow it or not right now, there is I don't necessarily want to call it a movement, but there are a group of politicians who believe that socialism is the way that our country should go. So capitalism to them is that they don't really, either they don't think it works or they don't like it. Okay. Be that as it may, whatever. All right. So I've got a definition here, and I know that I'm going to write about socialism. So we know that from there, what I'm going to have to do is, and Jayla said it, come up with a research question. So what is it that I'm trying to say, or what is it that I want to figure out about socialism? So does anybody have a thought about what a good research question would be to start out with? Anybody? I mean, just throw something out there and save my voice a little bit. I'll give you guys another thing to think about too, especially those of you who are still working or trying to figure out how to start. Y'all know what the 5 W's are, right? Okay. Caleb, that's not necessarily a bad question, but what you have to ask yourself is this: when you answer it, what okay, let me back up. If that's your research question, what you have to ask yourself is, what's the body of your paper going to look like if that's your question? And I think the problem then becomes, it becomes a historical paper and probably less research oriented. What I mean by that is there's not as much of an idea. You got to remember, when you're asking yourself a research question, really what you want it to be is an opinion. Because if you ask yourself, well, when did it come into play? What you're basically going to end up with is a fact. And remember, three things. Does anybody remember that? Nakia, we're going to go ahead and go with socialism here. Jayla, that's a good question. Okay, you guys, I'm going to back up because you still didn't answer my first question. 5 W's. Your topic ought to be asking one of these things. Okay. Now, Jayla, I'm gonna keep your question. I'm gonna keep your question in mind. So what I'm gonna do basically is this. I'm gonna go back to what I have here. Okay. We'll go with our 5 W's. Okay. Who? Okay. Right now, what we know is that there are a group of politicians okay. What? Basically, socialism. So I'm gonna try to blow this up for you all. Okay. And again, you have to remember, this is just me trying to be quick and dirty about this, okay? Because I only have 75 minutes at the most to try to get you to follow where I'm going with this. Okay. So what we've got here is a list of 5 potential ways to go, okay? What we could do is say who, okay? We know the who. The who is the group of politicians. What? Socialism is a beneficial form of government. We know when, present day. Where? United States. Why? Why would politicians or anyone else want or prefer socialism? Okay, so we want to go through here and try to figure out which of these is going to be the most generative question to ask. Okay, well, if we already know who, that's probably not really the best research question to start out with. Okay, what could be possible? When, and this goes back to Caleb, what you said. We already know when. It's right. It's going on right now. Now, as far as getting into the history of socialism, like I said, what you're going to end up doing is having a paper that's just full of facts. Remember, research papers, and I know this is another thing too. I'm going to come back to your screen. This is important. Notice all my exclamation points. Research papers are not just facts cobbled together from various sources. That is not what a research paper is. Okay? It's not just you giving me a ton of facts. That's more like a book report. That's not a research paper. Okay? A research paper, you have an argument. It's something you're trying to show, something you're trying to prove, something you're trying to investigate. And that's why a fact is not the place to start with a research paper, because you can't argue a fact. Okay. Like the one I always give. Let's say I was going to write a paper on my opinion that the Notorious Big is the best rapper ever. Okay. That's an opinion, right? That's something I can argue. Well, my thesis statement wouldn't be this. If that would be my thesis statement, what's the problem with that? Come on, guys, help me out here. What's wrong with this as a thesis? Caleb, good. You won't be able to have body paragraphs to back that up. Excellent. Why is that? This is where I'm really trying to get you to go step by step through this. Because your answer is 100% right, Caleb. Exactly. But why is that? I'm hoping you guys are just tired and that you actually know these things. If you don't, you need to go back and watch the last lecture. I'm going to ask one more time. Why wouldn't you have the body paragraphs to back it up? I'm going to go ahead and answer this because I have to get to my point here soon, because it is a fact. You can't argue facts. I mean, what are you going to do if you have that as your thesis? You're going to go find a coroner's report that says he died March 9th, 1997? What more could you have? It doesn't give you any room. Caleb, good. It's just a fact. You can't argue a fact. And moreover, again, like you said earlier, Caleb, what would you do to back that up? I mean, to make it into 5 pages, you wouldn't have anything. Okay. So remember, and again, I'm going to go back over this for your benefit, because I don't know who looked at the last lecture, who didn't, who has a clue what's going on and who doesn't. I don't, especially because I'm not in class there to see you. Okay. 3 things the thesis should not be. And if you didn't get that from the last lecture, write it down, especially if you're still working. Or if you already started writing and your thesis statement is one of these 3 things, you need to go back and change it. Okay? Shouldn't be a fact because you can't argue a fact. Shouldn't be someone else's quote because that other person doesn't need you to argue for them. Can't be a question because a question is not a statement. A question is an interrogative. If your thesis statement is a question, you're not telling your reader where you stand on a topic. You're giving them, you're posing a question. It doesn't tell anybody where you are on something. And that's what a research paper is supposed to do. So having said that, okay, Jayla, we're going to go back up to yours. And I'll tell you why I think this is a fairly good research question. If you go back and look at what I did here, you'll see why I did this was almost for the process of elimination. Okay? Because we already know who. I mean, the only way that could go being a research question would be, okay, I'm going to ask who the group is. What's a group of politicians lobbying for them to become socialized? Then guess what that's going to become? A list. It's going to become a list of people. And the only place you can go from there is, why does each one of these people want that? Well, then you have to ask yourself, how great a detail can you get into talking about a group of politicians that want America to become socialized when there is a pretty high number of them and you only have 5 pages to do it in? It's not to say that if you were writing a longer paper, you couldn't use this as your research question. You probably could. But in a 5-page paper, let's say, for example, like Bernie Sanders, probably the biggest example of one that has gone on the record as wanting America to become socialized. Well, what's going to happen is, even if you focus on Bernie Sanders, you're going to end up writing a paper on Bernie Sanders. It's not going to be about socialism. You understand what I mean? So it doesn't really set you up to address your topic. What? Well, we already know what. So this one right here is out. That doesn't serve you any purpose. When? We know it's right now. Doesn't serve you any purpose. Okay? To ask, well, when is this going on? Today. That what I'm saying is, it's not going to give you can't go anywhere with that. Where? Well, we already know where. You're writing about the United States. That doesn't really go anywhere. So, Jayla, this comes back to what you said. Seems to me this is about the only way to go, is to ask why. Okay. So, you're asking, all right, Dr. Root, well, you've got your 2 potential things here, but this one we've already kind of realized this is probably going to be too broad, or it's going to take you off your topic. So let's be honest, comparing these 2, the better one is why. All right. So we've got our question. Why would politicians or anyone else want or prefer socialism? Okay. Now, this is where I want an answer. I'm not going to give you an answer. Okay. Let's go back to this. Looking at these definitions now, this is why I did this way. Why would politicians or anyone else want or prefer socialism? Now that you all know the definition of socialism, as you see it here, these are both two pretty straightforward examples. Okay. Can you provide an answer to this question based on these definitions that would make sense? Can you answer that question and say, this is why someone would want America to become a socialist country? And I'm going to give you a minute or two to answer that. And one more thing I should probably add to this too. You may end up coming up with an idea here that may not work. That's fine. That's why you go through this process. If this idea doesn't end up working, you go back and you shift it to what would work better. The only way you can really do that is by answering the question and then going and doing the research to see if the research coincides with what you think. So we know these are the definitions. So what you need to do is look at these and try to understand why somebody would think these are good things, correct? Okay. Radio silence. All right. So then let's back up a step and ask this. Why, what sort of problems come with private property? The great philosopher Rousseau said, modern society started when one man was brilliant enough, I think he was being sarcastic, to declare, this is mine. And he said that's when all the problems started. Am I giving you all a hint here about problems that come from private property? If we were in class right now, I'd make you all get up and do 10 jumping jacks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I'm just going to go on a run because, like I said, either you guys are sleepy or you know, anything I've been saying over the last couple lectures is not sunken in. So if that's the case, you do need to go back and watch the last lecture because I went over most of this stuff. Okay. Here's a logical idea or a logical thought. Okay. Why would politicians or anyone want or prefer socialism to capitalism? Okay. Capitalism is what our government currently is. Okay. Well, one of the problems with private property I should say can. All right. So I'll read it out loud. Then I'm going to go back to the YouTube screen real quick. Private property can create a state of inequality. Okay. Do you all understand what that means? go back to what I just, go back to this. Okay. I'm going to have to move through this because I've only got 25 minutes or so. Okay. So what I was saying here is one of the problems that a lot of people have with capitalism is that traditionally in this country, a very small number of people have controlled most of the wealth. Okay. What that means is, for example, in my gender studies class, I'm talking about, or at least I was talking about gender roles during the era of slavery. And during the era of slavery, something like 5% of the population in our country controlled 95% of the wealth. Okay. So what that means is there's a huge discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots. And I would say that would be part of the argument that people might have who favor socialism. Now, we could also look at this and say, okay, well, if we're looking at politicians, maybe what politicians really want to do is have the government control what everybody does. Okay. Now, again, that's going to complicate things a little bit. So let's just go back to this one. Okay. So this would be the why. Let's just say this is going to be basically my thesis statement. Okay. What we're going to do is, like I showed you last class, we're going to go back to the library's webpage on Claflin's. No, let's hope this works. Okay, let's see. All right. I don't know why it's saying no internet. Okay, well, that's not good. Sorry, guys. Like I said, all this bad weather has also put a damper on my internet a little bit. And like I said, this may not work. So let's hope it does. Okay. For some reason, it says I'm having connectivity issues here with Claflin's website. Okay, here we go. All right. So as I showed you last time, databases. So probably what we'd want to look at here, honestly, probably political science would honestly probably be our best way to go. Okay. We go to academic search complete because it's got the most databases in it. Okay. Now we know we need to okay. All right. So again, I'm going to show you something that's going to, that's just to make a point here. Now get ready. Okay, 222,000 hits. All right, that's a lot. Okay, so what we know we're going to need to do is go to an advanced search. Okay, now we've taken it down to less than 20,000. Now let's see if we can get it tighter. Okay, we got down to 684. All right, so let's just look at this real quick. Okay, this is a book. Okay, and again, what we have here is sort of an abstract. Now, we know right here, Latin America's, okay? So probably not going to help us any, all right? So we go back. Okay, there's Latin America. Latin America. Okay, the author talks about the failure of socialists to take actions to oppose and change the capitalist system and promote socialist reforms. Topics discussed include theorizing of socialist politics, the actions of democratic socialists of America, and the need for reform in programs including housing, Medicare, and education. That sounds like something we can use. Okay, so what we would do is go over here to where we see PDF full text because we need to be able to look at the text. Okay, and again, we just need to scan things a lot of times, particularly early on in an article. Okay, and I'm just reading this as it goes along. Okay, found something. All right, so going back here. Why would politicians or anyone else want or prefer socialism? Private property can create a state of inequality. Okay, so just move down, and what we do is kind of start thinking about how to start this paper. Okay, now you have to remember this is just coming off the top of my head. This is nothing that's been prepped. Okay, so what I'm telling you is it's not going to look perfect. It's not supposed to look perfect. This is a draft. Okay. Then what we do is we go back up here. I'm actually going to go with this one because it fits better with what I'm working with. Okay, we know we need to cite where we got it from. Okay, so we kind of have our opening here. Okay, this is kind of setting the table here. Okay, now some of this stuff I'm going to be using in here obviously is independent knowledge, but it's knowledge that doesn't really need to be cited. Okay, because it's considered common knowledge. And you notice I use the United States here instead of America because we don't want to beat the same words to death either. Okay. Again, we're giving background here. Now, it always looks good to have something in your opening that is evidence, something evidentiary. Okay. Michael Hirsch is the author of this book. I believe it's a book. Okay. Okay. Right here is what you have called a block quote. Block quotes are anything. Actually, this may not be one. Usually, it's 40 words or more. I'm not going to go and count the words. I'm just going to assume that that's 40 words. Okay. And this is page 1. Or I'm sorry, actually 54. Sorry, 54. And actually, the period goes here. Okay. Okay. Right there, we know. One thing we know is that one of the things that the Bill of Rights, at least we should know this, the Bill of Rights was written to do was to keep the government from controlling every aspect of our lives. Okay. And that's why a lot of people have a problem with socialism because, again, what we've got here, remember, we've got our definition. Okay. So that would explain why a lot of people would have a problem with that, because basically what happens is the state ends up with its hands in everybody's pie. Okay. So what you have here is essentially an opening. You've got your background. You've got a source. You have a thesis. What I showed you all there, very simply put, is within, and really take away the time that I asked you guys to answer questions where I waited for you to answer them. That probably took me a grand total of 10 to 15 minutes to do. Now, here, I know that I have a lot more experience doing this stuff than you guys. I'm not telling you it should only take you 15 minutes. But what I'm saying is, particularly if you are struggling and you don't really know what process to take to begin writing a paper like this, I just showed you. I just showed you how you can go through and do this fairly quickly. Because once you get an introduction, particularly a working one, it becomes much easier to go through and write the rest of your paper and find source material, etc. One of the biggest problems that my students have, and it's not just freshman English comp students, it's not just English students, it's basically historically been every student I teach. If you do not have this, and I'll even put in a different color for you. If you do not have a firm idea of what it is that you're arguing, you are not going to be able to argue it. So a lot of times what happens with students is they don't have a thesis paper or a thesis statement. And then when I read their papers are all over the place. Why? Because they don't have this. You have to have some focal point about where you're going. So again, at the risk of repeating myself, so you can figure out how to get there. You just have to. Then where you could go from here is this. Okay, one of the things about socialism that is also a proven fact that you go into and really make a bold statement. Trying to think of another word for attempted so I don't repeat myself here. Again, this is just something I know, but it's something I also know as a fact. Go back and read and look at countries throughout history that have tried to use socialism. There has never been one example where it has worked for more than, a short period. Then this allows me also to use other examples from other countries and explain why, if we were to take that particular move in our country, it wouldn't work. Okay. Again, I'm not trying to politicize anything and say this is where I stand on anything. This is my belief. What I'm saying is this is a thesis statement you could argue, and you could go through here and explain why that's the case. And by using other countries, you could show also why it would not work in America. Okay. So basically, I'm almost out of time. I wanted to go through there and show you this because I think, one, there's probably a solid chance that a lot of you guys are stuck. And two, I think another thing is, if you don't, if you turn in a rough draft to me, which they're due tomorrow, and you don't have a working thesis, you're going to have a really difficult time writing a paper that doesn't go all over the place. And that's not what you want. You want it to be focused. And really, the reason you do is not just because that makes a better paper, but because the point of me reading these is not to bash an idea. It's not to tell you don't know what you're doing. It's, one, to try to get you to learn how to do this. And two, it's so you can get a good grade. I've said this before. I want everybody in here to pass. And, I don't just want everybody in here to do the work. I want the work to be done well, because I think you're capable of that. If I didn't, I wouldn't be wasting my time here doing these streams like this. I'm not really required to do any live streaming. Actually, Claflin doesn't require me to do this. The reason I'm doing this is because I think you need to kind of see in action what I'm doing instead of me just telling you what to do. I'm hoping that you watch this, and if you didn't watch the last lecture, go back and watch it. I think these things will help you figure out what to do to write a paper, a rough draft for me, because the better your rough draft is, the more help I can give you. The more scattered, incomplete, haphazard, off focus, off task a draft is when you hand it into me, the harder it is for me to help you. So basically, this is almost a case of help me help you. Okay. I mean, the best way to do that is write the best possible draft that you can write. Don't just treat it like, well, I've got to write this draft, so I'm going to write it and just toss it together and give it to Dr. Root, and that'll be that. Because again, the less you give me, the less I can help you. And I still view my job as to try to help you. So that's my goal with these rough drafts and us having conferences on them, etc. So on Moodle, you're going to see there's a Dropbox there. You're also going to see there's a time to set up conferences. We will not be having a live stream on Thursday because, as I told you last time, conferences replace class. Okay. Conferences, you're not supposed to look at it as like a canceled class. They replace a class attendance. So if you turn in a paper to me and you have a conference with me, that counts as a day of attendance. Okay. You can't be in two places at once. All right. I realize now that we're doing things virtual. I guess technically, I could do a stream, then I could have conferences with you, but I would rather you focus on writing the paper right now. I think that's what we need to do. So focus on writing the paper, use some of the tips I gave you there, and I think that you'll be able to have a better sense of what it is you're doing and what you need to do in order to get to where you want to go and allow me to give you as much assistance as I can give you. Because again, that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to fail you. I'm not here to rip you apart. My job is to get you guys to be able to do this so that when you're out of my class and you never, well, with this whole pandemic going on, who knows if we'll ever be on campus again anytime soon. But what I mean is, if you never see me again, never talk to me again, ideally, when you leave this class, you can go, I don't have to take his class anymore, and I'm never going to take another English class again. But what I learned in there about writing research papers, I can use in other classes. That's the point of freshman comp, guys. Freshman comp is not designed for me to convert you all to becoming English majors. That's not what I'm here to do. Okay. If you haven't figured that out yet, that's not what I'm here to do. What I am here to do is to get you to learn a skill that you can transfer over to whatever it is you do. And I think if you give me the benefit of the doubt, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I think if you give me the benefit of the doubt, you'll find that I actually know what I'm talking about and that this stuff can help you beyond this class. Okay. So that's where I'm going to wrap up. Again, if you have any questions in the meantime, you can email me. I'm quarantined. I'm staying in the house. My wife just left. She had to get stuff for her cats. So haha on her, because that's her. They're her cats, not mine. So I don't have to go get their stuff. But my point is I'll be here. I should be able to respond pretty quickly to your emails if you have a question. And I look forward to reading what you have. And I hope that whatever you turn in, I can help you improve upon it, make it better, and you end up doing well on this. You get through this class, and then, like I said, you don't have to worry about any more English comp, for the rest of your time in college. And on that note, it's a good time to end because my neighbor is now mowing his grass, and I have my window open, so it's going to be noisy. So it's a perfect time to end. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, remember, no live stream on Thursday. And when you do turn in your draft, be sure you look in the Dropbox that I've set up. I have conference times in there. Please be sure when you turn in a draft to tell me in a note or an email, whatever, what time you want to have a conference. And I will send you the information just like I did last time we had conferences. Okay. So on that note, my voice is about gone. You guys take care of yourselves, take care of each other, be safe out there. This thing isn't over yet. They say it's starting to minimize, but we all still have to be responsible and do what we need to do to protect ourselves and protect each other. And I hope you all are well. I hope you're healthy. I hope your families are well and healthy. I hope you had a good Easter weekend. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for attending. I hope this helped you. And I will ideally be conferencing with those of you who turn in drafts on Thursday and, if necessary, Friday. I'll see y'all.